Good evening. Last fall, I had the privilege of participating in the Asian Social Justice Internship. We spent a few months with Professor Jimin Kim learning the history of the World War II in Asia. At the end of the internship, I was given the opportunity to speak over Skype to Ms. Aksun Lee. When you're taking a class with Professor Jimin Kim, it's a history class. It's valuable, it teaches you the facts and what happened. But when you talked to Ms. Aksun Lee, that's when the history became real. That's when you learned the lesson that you were supposed to learn in class. Ms. Aksun Lee told us that she was 15 when she was taken. That's how old my sister is right now, and that to me is what is still with me. Society is defined by how we treat our children. And when she was 15, she was taken and she was raped and she was treated like a sex slave. For me, that took the history class and that brought the history into the now, and that taught me that I couldn't forget her and that I had to pass on what she taught us to the next generation to prevent this from ever happening again. Thank you, Ms. Aksun Lee, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Alexander. Another intern that come up, Wei Wu Lee, would you please come up?
Good evening. I haven't known the controversial issues about comfort women for a long time, but I've never thought I would have a chance to talk to those women. Last fall semester, I had the honor to interview one of these women, and I was absolutely shocked by her story. I realized how vulnerable the human rights could be during the wartime. I interviewed Ms. Yichul Gang, and who was sick and cannot be attend this event today. It's very sad. She was kidnapped when she was 15 or 16 years old, the most beautiful age. Instead of enjoying her teenage years, she was taken away to the comfort station to serve Japanese soldiers as a forced sexual slave. She survived from the war and ran out from the comfort station. However, the inhuman experiences had never stopped hurting her. Even after almost 70 years, when she was telling about the story, I could still feel the horrors and the fears in her voice. And she still lives in comfort station, even though in reality, she is not living there anymore. Because of the tremendous psychological damage, she was too ashamed to tell her families about her story. This is what bothers me most. I think one of the reasons is because people are unaware or ignorant about this historical tragedy. And this is the reason why we conduct this intern. We want to educate more people about this and care about these women. For all the comfort women, they are already in their late 80s and early 90s. They are not afraid of dying. What they are frightened is no one would ever care about the history, and what they have been through will be forgotten. When I interview these women, I feel like I was not only interviewing a comfort woman, I was like talking to my grandma, who is in her 80s, and she was telling me about this horrible story. This grandma told me that she wanted nothing but a formal and sincere apology from Japan. I won't tell Ms. Yichul Gang that I care about you, and more people will care about you, and your sisters too. And I will never ever forget you, and your story gonna live on, and you will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Mr. Renard, would you like to come up? Our interns express this story in many ways. You just heard two interns speak very eloquently. And when we first met them, they didn't have that eloquence. We're going to see another intern who's telling the story in quite a different way.
Hey everybody. So I'm kind of terrible telling stories verbally. So what I did was, when I was presented with this internship, I was given an opportunity to tell my story artistically. So I took the chance to actually come up with something that would be similistic to the story that I was told. Now, each of the comfort women, they felt kind of shameful which is why they didn't tell their families anything as they were growing up. In my painting, I should go stand next to it. So, in my painting, what I was trying to do is so in my painting, what I was trying to do is show one side as they were younger in the dark shadows because they was pretty much hidden. And now as they getting old, they're more in the light because they're speaking out. I didn't put a mouth because throughout all these years, they had no voice. So their stories really wasn't heard of and they're still being rejected and denied. It's pretty much my view, my way of telling the story.
Thank you. And now for the last intern we have speaking today, Fuzia Sanai, would you please come up?
Hello. I'm honored to stand here before you to speak about the treacherous but brave plight of these comfort women. These comfort women were women who were our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our aunts, warriors, and survivors of this ill-conceived war that was carried out by the Japanese during 1939 to 45. During the World War II era, the Japanese began their imperialistic domination over Asia, beginning with North and South Korea, China, Taiwan, and sweeping brutal domination over these nations. The Japanese were in the throes of consuming all of Asia and begun with these innocent Asian nations. These nations were becoming a part of Japan's grasp of totalitarianism and barbarism within the sweep of the Japan's neo-colonialist injunction were the innocent lives that were captured during the brutal sweep of this nation. In these nations, these women such as Aung San Lee were kidnapped. The Korean women were brave. They were stolen from the streets of their native Korea and forced into a life that they did not ask for. They were forced into a life of sex slavery, prostitution, and sexual assault. As a personal gift to Aung San Lee and to all of comfort women and keeping their story alive, we must rename these women as an act of preservation. We must change their status from comfort women to comfort survivors. The name comfort women was given to them by the Japanese. The Japanese have slaughtered the identity and their rights to be female. So in an effort to rewrite history and reclaim their bodies and their voice, we must rename the comfort women to the name of comfort survivors. We must also unite in preventing that this and any other human atrocity from ever occurring and against womanhood. This should never happen again. No apology and compensation will ever repay for the crime that was perpetuated against these women. Let me keep going. My Asian social justice internship with the Kupferberg Holocaust Center taught me that being held captive against your own will, being enslaved, being a victim of circumstance does not make you a weaker soul, but makes you stronger. Because your will and courage to survive should be the test of your strength and not the position that one gets subjected towards. There's a long-held belief that these comfort women, comfort survivors, were dirty, spoiled, or unwanted. But we know a cultural belief system can be wrong, and that these women were not damaged or spoiled, but one of a kind, unique in their existence. Since stolen from their native land to be imprisoned innocently is not a fault of their own. They should be erected as symbols of courage, bravery, and womanhood. The Comfort Woman is a story of survival and of bravery, not just of womanhood. We're gathered here today to remember the untold story of Aung Lee. We must remember the untold stories of Aung Lee. When Clarissa and I, another intern, interviewed Aung Lee, we had made a promise with Lee that we would tell everyone we know, we would tell the world, we would tell you. And that's what I'm doing today, and that's what I plan on doing every day. We must continue to spread the stories of these comfort women because we have been privileged to hear their stories, hear these survivors of these sex slave camps. We're privileged to hear their journeys. It was also a great pleasure and honor to be taught by Dr. Jimin Kim, a Columbia professor in Asian history and social justice. It was such a pleasure because she was Asian, she was Korean. She was first-hand account of Korean history. Dr. Kim was anything but of value to the Kupferberg internship. Okay, thank you so much.
The great pride I take is that these students were not at all talkative when they came in. They felt, I have to get up in front of a class and give a presentation. And here, they're ready to announce this to the world. Let's have a hand for the interns. Yeah.